In a fiery congressional exchange that quickly went viral, Republican Representative Clay Higgins was left speechless after attempting to challenge Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett to a debate over education funding and voucher programs. The clash unfolded during a heated House session as lawmakers discussed federal appropriations and oversight of the Department of Education. Crockett, known for her sharp wit and unflinching command of policy details, dismantled Higgins' challenge with a masterclass in facts and composure. She began by thanking Representative Maxwell Frost for his proposed amendment before pivoting to expose what she called the hypocrisy of Republicans who claim to care about accountability while actively gutting the very department that ensures it. She reminded the chamber that Democrats had already requested data and transparency from the Department of Education in 2019 and 2020, requests that were stonewalled once Republicans began pushing to weaken or dismantle the department altogether. "They put the wrestling lady over it," Crockett said, referencing GOP leadership's appointment of education secretary candidates who vowed to shut down the department rather than strengthen it. "So, they started gutting it from within," she added, highlighting the irony of Republicans demanding data from an institution they themselves are trying to destroy. Crockett then hit back with hard numbers: $30 million for the Opportunity Scholarship Program, OSP, $10 million for D.C. public schools, and $20 million for D.C. public charter schools, totaling roughly $24,000 per OSP student under the GOP's federal proposal. Her breakdown silenced the opposition, as she pointed out that these figures weren't speculative, they were right there in the appropriations record. By the time Crockett yielded her time, murmurs filled the chamber. Higgins, who had attempted to bait her into a televised-style debate, was visibly frustrated but offered no factual rebuttal. On social media, clips of Crockett's takedown quickly racked up millions of views, with viewers praising her precision and poise. One user wrote, "Jasmine Crockett just schooled that man with facts and receipts. Congress needs more of that energy." Another said, "Every time they come for her, she sends them home educated." In the end, Crockett's commanding response not only shut down her challenger, it also reignited broader conversations about Republican efforts to undermine public education and the hypocrisy of demanding accountability from systems they actively work to dismantle. Through 12 education, because that system is primarily managed and funded at the state and local level, not by the federal government. So when my colleague across the aisle blames the Department of Education for the failures in our classrooms, that's not only misleading, it's just flat-out inaccurate. The Department of Education doesn't control your local school board, it doesn't hire or fire your teachers, and it doesn't decide your district's curriculum. What it does do is ensure that students with disabilities are protected, that civil rights in education are upheld, and that federal dollars are used equitably and responsibly, especially in underfunded communities that have historically been left behind. Now, let's talk about this idea that public schools are failing. My friends on the other side conveniently leave out the fact that many of these so-called failing schools are in states run by Republicans who have spent decades defunding public education, underpaying teachers, and funneling taxpayer dollars into private voucher programs that lack accountability. You cannot starve a system and then turn around and complain that it's not performing. And let's be real about what school choice actually means here. It's not about freedom for parents, it's about taking public money away from public schools and handing it to private institutions that don't have to follow the same rules, don't serve the same diverse populations, and often produce no better academic outcomes. We've seen this movie before. The profits go up, but the results stay flat. Republicans love to say we're pouring money down a rat hole, but investing in our children's future isn't wasteful, it's patriotic. If we really want to compete with China and India, as my colleague mentioned, then let's invest in our teachers, our infrastructure, our technology, and our students. That's what those countries are doing. They're not abolishing their education departments or attacking their educators. So, I'll say this clearly, Democrats aren't fighting for bureaucracy, we're fighting for accountability, equality, and opportunity. The Department of Education is not the enemy here. The enemy is the chronic underinvestment in our schools and the refusal to face that reality. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the remainder of my time. When we're talking about education, specifically K through 12, let's make something very clear for the American people. Our public schools are primarily managed at the local and state levels, not by the federal government. Local school boards, elected by the people, decide how their districts operate, what programs to adopt, and how to administer tests. States then set broader educational policies, such as testing requirements and curriculum standards. Finally, at the federal level, the Department of Education exists to ensure equal access to education, promote educational excellence, and provide financial and technical assistance to schools, districts, and students across the country. Now, the Department of Education's role is not to dictate daily classroom activities or tell teachers how to do their jobs. Instead, its work includes overseeing civil rights investigations, ensuring students with disabilities are supported, and making sure federal aid reaches communities that need it most. Yet, time and time again, we've heard Republicans push to dismantle or defund the very agency that ensures fairness and accountability in education. And let's not forget, this discussion about helping poor black kids in D.C. rings hollow when we look at the Republican track record. If this were truly about helping poor black students, we'd see consistent efforts to uplift those same communities across the country. But we don't. So please, spare us the moral high ground when your policies have historically ignored or actively harmed those same children you now claim to champion. Let's also be honest about private schools and voucher programs. Private institutions can choose who they accept and who they exclude. They can deny admission to students with disabilities, to LGBTQ+ students, or even to students of color. That's not equality, and it's not opportunity, it's discrimination disguised as choice. Meanwhile, public schools accept every child, no matter their background, income, or ability. And while this administration has made it harder for institutions to consider diversity in admissions, our HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, are now worried about their futures because they've always served a specific, vital purpose, providing opportunity where it was once denied. Instead of protecting these institutions, we're watching as funding and support are stripped away under the guise of fairness. So I'll say this, if we truly care about equity in education, then we must strengthen, not weaken, the systems that ensure every child, no matter their zip code or skin color, has a fair shot. Because what I'm seeing here today is not a fight for equality, it's a performance meant to distract from decades of neglect. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.